In Minecraft, there are dozens of mobs, each serving a unique, flavorful purpose and giving the game life. Maybe they add ambience to the world, maybe they serve dietary purposes, pose a challenge to the player attempting to overcome the odds of survival, or maybe something a bit more niche, such as potions, specialist items, etc. But there is a mob in which its purpose is so poorly executed that it has become nothing more than a nuisance, and in worst case, a detriment to the overall quality of the game on multiplayer servers. A mob so bad that even Mojang themselves hates the mob. The Phantom. The thing that tells you it's way past your bedtime in the most annoying way possible. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the complaints of the community, explaining why they are problems, and then giving my own personal solutions. Before we begin diving into this topic head first, I need to remind you that I am not a game designer. I'm simply someone who has a special interest in the Phantom and would like to see the mob be improved, as it's my favourite mob in the game, and I would like to see it on the same level as other hostile creatures in the game. That being said, let us begin. First, let us give a quick background and explanation of the mob. In 2017's Minecon, the developers had decided to do something a bit special for the community. Essentially, they created 4 draft mobs, with each having a unique element on how they would work. Then, they presented them to the community, and asked them to vote on which mob should be implemented into the game. Between the two most arguably interesting mobs, the Great Hunger and the Monster of the Night Sky, it was extremely close, with the Monster of the Night Sky winning by only a few percent. The reason for this was quite clear. The mob sounded interesting because it would be a hostile flying mob, which we simply don't have for the overworld. The design was cool and unique, compared to the Great Hunger, where it only was just one big cube with some legs. And also the Great Hunger was implied to instantly kill you, so maybe that's what it did it in, you know? Not a very fun mechanic. The Monster of the Night Sky would then go on to be renamed to the Phantom. Then it was released in the 1.13 Aquatic Update. Thematically fitting, considering the developers gave it a manta ray-inspired design. Enough of the history, let's actually discuss how the Phantom was implemented into the game, in a bit of detail. The Phantom had a unique spawning behaviour. The mob would spawn after 3 in-game days, or 72,000 ticks. For each tick above this, the chance would increase, the probability formula being as follows, where X is the number of ticks since you last rested, temporarily or eternally. For the rest of the video, we'll call this the Insomnia Timer. They also tended to spawn in small groups, about 1 to 4 Phantoms per spawn. Once they have spawned, they'll begin circling around the desired target, and after some waiting, they'll swoop down towards a target and take a bite of them, or retreat to their original elevation if they take damage or are blocked from the target. They'll repeat their circling and attacking until they are dealt with. They'll drop a bit of experience, and occasionally Phantom Membrane, an item used to repair the Elytra. With this, we can now move on to the complaints of the community. Hey, hopefully you're enjoying the video so far, but if you take a look at this graph here, you can see that most people already subscribe to my channel, and if you're not, you're kind of strange, so you might want to fix that. The Minecraft community has been complaining about the Phantom since its initial release. While you would think these complaints would be enough for the Phantom to be changed already, just one look at the complaints people have had and you can see why it's difficult for the developers to pin down a solution. The complaints are typically generic in nature and may only ever state that they're just annoying. When critiquing an element of the game, we should be as specific as we can as to not only be clear to anyone reading your criticisms, but the developers themselves. Without defined problems, the issues simply will not be resolved. And we do know the developers know about how bad the Phantom is, as they constantly jabbers their own creation as a mistake.
This mob, the Phantom, has my favourite purpose in Minecraft. The Phantom was the first mob ever voted into the game by you, the players, so its purpose was to restore everyone in the world's faith in democracy. Thanks, Phantom.
So for the interest of this video, I've decided to ask a few people why they think the Phantom is so annoying, and from this I've created a list of defined problems we can explain and therefore tackle later in this video. Fighting them is far too difficult for the number of them that appear and their rewards. Phantoms force you to sleep every hour of real time, and in multiplayer they are so bad that they can make the game unplayable. Let's go through each of these and briefly explain them. This is a simple problem. The Phantoms, while having somewhat generous hitboxes, are frustrating to fight, and require much more effort than many other mobs in the game's dispatch, and in reward you get about the same experience as a zombie. and maybe Phantom Membrane, in which is a completely useless item outside of slow falling potions because the Elytra can simply have mending applied because it can't actually properly break, it just kind of gets damaged. Sure, mending is rare, but in some cruel way I'd much prefer finding a mending book or getting one from trading even, then repair my Elytra for not even a third of the durability. Why does this suck so bad? The Ghast, well, being one of the more annoying mobs in the game as well, at least drops gas tears, which are used for end crystals and regeneration potions. Both are very useful to the player. This forces you to interact with a mechanic that is ultimately not used for anything else. There is no reward for sleeping, there is no need to sleep. It is a respawn mechanic. The only thing that makes you want to sleep is the Phantom. In addition to that, sleep is required every hour, which is such a long gap in time that many players will simply forget to sleep. It's a timer that one has to maintain, but they can't see the clock. They just have to guess when they need to go to sleep. Sure, you can keep track of the days, but not many players are going to be doing that when they're working on other things, or underground, or the nether. They only really know that they need to go to sleep when the Phantoms themselves show up. In addition, in regular survival gameplay, this method of warding off the Phantoms requires you to set your spawn at a new bed if traveling. This means that the Phantoms actually discourage you from traveling if your base isn't at the spawn chunks of the world, as they add much more risk to death, which is a horrible oversight due to Minecraft being a game with heavy exploration. In technicality, this mechanic is very close to being as against of one Minecraft's own design philosophies, where all disasters are caused by the player, as possible. Sure, you as a player do maintain this insomnia timer, but you can only sleep at certain times of the Minecraft day. You need to remember to do it every few nights, and also be nearby a bed to begin with. This makes deterring the Phantoms far too demanding on the player until they actually show up and people have to reluctantly seek out a bed. In multiplayer, arranging the server to simultaneously sleep can be extremely difficult, if not impossible. This means that many players will not be able to sleep at all, and thus everyone is insanely sleep deprived, and Phantoms will spawn continuously in huge hordes. This is why the Do Insomnia game rule was added by Mojang. This problem is actually mitigatable through what seems to be a quirk of the sleeping mechanic, where if you sleep to the point where you're considered to be sleeping to the server, or when your screen becomes the darkest, the insomnia timer will be reset. This does not seem to be intentional, and even if it is, it's extremely unintuitive. Are you really going to pretend that people will just get into their bed for 5 seconds, get back out, and realize Phantoms are no longer spawning? I mean, I did that, but I don't know how I figured it out in hindsight. I really do not know. So what can we do to solve the issues the Phantom has? Now, we are not going to remove the mob, although that'd be kind of funny and extremely satisfying to many of you. This mob was voted in by the community, and it would set a negative precedent if we were to do that. Okay, how about we remove its links to sleep and instead make it spawn in a different way, like perhaps the night version of pillager patrols? Well, no to that too, because this insomnia seems to be an intrinsic part of the inspiration for the mob, for its design and its own lore. The Phantoms are dependent on sleep to make sense within the world of Minecraft, at least through many interpretations of the beast from the community. So we need to preserve the ties to insomnia, but also make it somehow feel fair, or at least fun to the player. I have two proposed solutions, one of which solves another problem in Minecraft, but keeps the current mechanics mostly intact, and the other which would be an essential overhaul of the Phantom spawning mechanics. So in Minecraft, one of the central progression mechanics is the enchanting table, along with the supplemental use of the anvil and grindstone for better control of the process. In order to get the best enchants from the table, you need enough bookshelves, some lapis, and 30 levels minimum. After meeting those requirements, enchanting will spend 3 of your levels, and in order to max up particular items, you will also need use of the anvil to apply enchantments that aren't available from the table. This is obvious to an experienced Minecraft player, but what's even more obvious is how horrific actually getting to level 30 can be. Frequently, getting to level 30 is a massive time investment, so players normally build experience farms in order to compensate for this. In fact, experience farms can often feel needed for endgame progression, and while I feel as though this is fine to have as one solution for the player base, I feel like Minecraft farms should be left optional, and other options should exist that are competitive in terms of speed. So let's bring in the Phantom. What if the Phantom became this option? What if the Phantoms became a risk reward system that gives you far more experience per Phantom kill than a regular mob, maybe about 15 or 20. This means the longer you stay up, the faster you can grind levels against the Phantoms at night, but the harder it becomes to actually fend off the swarms. Then, sleeping becomes a way to reset the system back to 0 if the player deems it too risky to continue. This provides an alternative solution to speedrunning that feels far more integrated with the actual gameplay loop of Minecraft. However, this solution doesn't address the other two problems of the Phantom. If such a system was used, it would have to allow you to rest at any time, and simply getting into the bed will reset the insomnia timer, rather than having to wait for 5 seconds, which is unintuitive. Although this still wouldn't feel great to the player, and the fact you still need to sleep can be annoying for travel. So let's take a look at another option. For an alternative solution, we should look at the actual process of a phantom spawn. Logic is fairly simple. If you are tired, there is chance of the phantom spawning. But what if we introduced an intermediate process in the middle? What if the insomnia didn't trigger the phantom, but something else that could then go on to trigger the phantom? As an example of this middling event, let's introduce a new mob, the Wisp, a ghostly, marine life-inspired creature similar to the Phantom, that takes the form of a lantern with jellyfish-like anatomy. This mob is slow, bright at night, and will spawn when you haven't slept. Insomniac players will find that these mobs drift slowly towards them. Getting too close or attacking the mob with a melee attack will trigger a sting. To a well-rested player, this will simply deal damage and nothing else. But to a player who hasn't slept, it will summon a swarm of phantoms to your location as the wisp dissipates. This still means that we can have phantoms be tied to the insomnia timer, but still obey the game design philosophies of Minecraft within multiplayer. There is now a direct, easily identifiable in-world link to the phantom spawns. This also means we can make phantoms more interesting, harder, and rewarding to fight, as they would technically be optional. If we still insist on encouraging sleep, we can make these wisps drift faster with more insomnia, but to a cap of player sneaking speed. They are a slow yet dangerous force, if you will. With all seriousness, I feel as though a combination of these two solutions together will ultimately be the best future for the Phantom, allowing the player to avoid the phantoms with a gentle nudge towards sleep, while also providing a solution to the experience grind problem with a risk-reward system can simultaneously solve two big issues with Minecraft, and ultimately make the worst mob in Minecraft into possibly one of the best in the game. Thank you for watching.